he was out front saying 250 million acres of low value land doesn't mean anything to anybody.
Yeah. And then you go out and you look at those places and you're like, no, this is probably, in my opinion, some of our highest value land. What is up, everybody? Mark on the mic here, joined by Mr. Ryan Callaghan, Director of Conservation over at MeatEater. And Ryan, number one, thanks for joining me. We got a hot one here. We've got some conservation work that needs to be done right now. And I guess by hot, I mean on fire.
It is. The fire is at the front door. Like you could fry an egg on the inside of your front door right now. And it's happening real time. So, thanks for making this happen. And for folks who don't know, Vortex, as well as a bunch of other awesome brands, but Vortex was one of the very first to sign on to an industry letter stating the importance of public lands and access to them for the hunting industry. So hunting businesses and brands in the hunt space, we know that our customer base recreates all sorts of recreation. It starts on public lands. So thank you very much to Vortex.
Oh, man. I mean, Ryan, we were happy to. This issue is the heart. It's at the heart of who we are here as individuals. It's at the heart of who we are as a company here. Like you said, this affects everybody, every American, no matter how you recreate on our public lands, man. And even if you don't or rarely do, they are of value to you. They are yours. And this is an issue that needs to be at the forefront of your mind. It's an issue that you need to take action on. And we've been talking about this issue, Ryan. What is it?
Well, it's a good place to start. So right now there's a budget reconciliation process happening. It's a special one because it doesn't happen unless one party controls the executive, the Senate, and the House. So, right now it's a Republican supermajority. This could happen if it was a Democrat supermajority as well. But there's some special things that come into play here where it takes fewer votes. In the interest of efficiency, it takes fewer votes to get bills passed because one party has this supermajority. And the way these bills come together is everybody splits off onto their committees, their individual committees. We killed this idea of land sales coming up, public land sales coming up in the House. But in the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee, which is chaired by Utah's Mike Lee, introduced language at the 11th hour. And it was like a whole enchilada type of idea. For those who are familiar with Senator Mike Lee, the one real compliment I can give him is he has been out in front with his idea forever, which is selling public lands. And that's his baby. That's what he wants to do. Well, he really swung for the fences on this one and designated well over 250 million acres of public lands in 11 Western states to be eligible for the mandatory disposal of somewhere around 3 million acres. Lots of scary things here that aren't hyperbole. They're very real, but we have an existing legal structure that was passed by the American citizens. These are two acronyms that are super fun: FLTFA and FLTMA. And these are the two mechanisms for selling Bureau of Land Management, U.S. Forest Service land. These were done with bipartisan voter input and passed in order to do ideally small scale disposal of public lands in order to support community infrastructure, address very specific needs. And then the revenues from land sales would go back into the purchase of land of higher value. So we could still see a net loss in acreage, but ideally we would see a replacement of some of that with land of higher value. And the word strategic is in there as well. So it could be a swap essentially of 350 acres for 50 acres that would unlock, access to a bigger chunk of public land that didn't exist before. So that was the whole thinking there. And this has been done in the past. It's established. And once again, it was done for everybody to see, voter input through, our democratic system. What's happening, and this is a little insider knowledge, but there's members of the House and Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee that are very upfront in the fact that they did not see this language, and Lee, as the chair, submitted it on his own, and now it's everybody's bag of poop to deal with, right? And Trump on the executive is like, I need this big, beautiful bill passed. I want it done by Independence Day. It's everybody's charge to get this thing done. And this language by Lee is one of the many just absolute dumpster fires that has just been blown out of control that's going to prevent that from happening. So Lee's not making any friends on here. And as you pointed out, people love public lands, and it's not just limited to hunters and anglers, right? We have retirees who do not go hike, hunt, fish on these places that are like, I still like looking out the window at public lands. Bird watchers, all members of these communities. And, if you really know what you're talking about, you understand that we need big, wide open spaces that are allowed to be big, wide open spaces to collect water, to recharge our aquifers, grazing ground, et cetera. Like the list goes on. And the way Lee has been pitching this stuff is from a position of just true, just no connection to the land. So he's earned the ire of people who could see some benefits in his plan, because he just is so blatantly not connected to these places and doesn't understand what they do, and throws out words like of no value, garden variety, things like this. And when the maps were finally released as to what lands would be eligible, then people had this, oh my God moment of, well, I know exactly what that spot is. I've been there. That's where I go. And there's been a true, like, if folks ever read that book, Groundswell, Malcolm Gladwell, it was like a marketing book for a lot of people. That's exactly what we're seeing. So, as you know, I'm the North American board chair for Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. Our nonprofit, along with many others and many other people just connected in this conservation community, have been like, hey, this is coming, this is coming, this is coming. And we received a lot of blowback at the beginning because it was seen as like a very political thing. And we're like, no, public lands are for everybody. They're not political. You don't want to lose them. And now we're kind of in this like bandwagon type of situation where people are jumping on left and right, because again, that fire is at the front door and the threat is very, very, very real. And Mike Lee has started to walk this back. So The Senate parliamentarian, and this is some how politics work things. There's this thing called the Byrd Rule, and I think just to make politics fun, it's referred to as the Byrd Bath and Byrd Bath process, which when there is this supermajority, it's basically like a set of rules to provide checks and balances. So when these bills get put together, there's a lot of momentum to get this done, right? Again, Trump's on one end being like, you got to get me this big, beautiful bill. I promised this to my voting base. We got to get this done. And so this Byrd Rule is there to say, hey, this is a budget process. It's got anything you throw in here has got to pertain to this process. And the Senate parliamentarian is throwing things out that do not pertain to this because we have this supermajority. We can ramrod through things through, but that's not fair to the American voter. It's not part of this process. So Lee's original language got thrown out during the Byrd Bath process. I wouldn't be able to tell you with a straight face that that's solely why it was thrown out. It was thrown out because everybody looked at this and they're like, I was just on the phone today with a couple of Senate offices, and I just asked right now, have you heard anything about public lands today? And there's like a heavy sigh, and they're like, we've never heard so much about public lands. That is all people are calling about.
I got chills from that, Cal, and they heard from me again today.
Yeah. And you know, it's not a scary process. Thank you very much for doing that, Mark. I mean, it's part of your duty as a citizen. And I think it's just something that we forgot along the way of how kooky politics and divided politics have gotten. But I got to say, if you're waiting to play politics with your vote, you're basically saying, I don't care what happens in between now and the next vote.
Yep.
And it's very obvious right now we can lose hundreds of millions of acres of access and public grounds that are doing a hell of a lot for the benefit of the American people on their own. So it's important to weigh in. But so right now, people have been going around Senator Lee to John Thune of South Dakota, who he's in a unique role. He's a senator for South Dakota, but he's also the Senate Majority Leader. So his responsibility isn't just to the citizens of South Dakota and his voting base in South Dakota. He's got a responsibility to every citizen in the United States right now to do his job in the right way. There's blowback coming from all 50 states, from every category. We've seen crazy celebrity pile-ons. I have some friends that are much more hip than I am, and I can't really tell you what they do, but they're big names with massive followings. I think they sing and act and stuff, but you know, they're piling on and being like, don't sell our public lands.
Sure.
And it's waking up other elements of these voting bases. And that's a big reason, besides the Byrd Rule, that this language got thrown out. Well, like I said, Mike Lee is and always has been very dedicated to this idea of selling public lands. And so he immediately went to work, and he's been trying to whip up support as much as he can for his altered version of his original language. And that version is out now. It's back in front of the Senate parliamentarian. It's not finalized. It's not in the bill technically, but it could be. And he said, okay, there's too much blowback. I'm going to get rid of U.S. Forest Service lands that I originally included. And now it's just Bureau of Land Management. And he's trying to draw circles, 5-mile radius around population centers. Nobody's been able to define what a population center is for this language. So as you know, in rural America, a population center is that place that has a general store that's also the post office,
Right.
and maybe not even a gas pump. And those places are typically surrounded by Bureau of Land Management land. And the other thing that I got to remind people is like, even in a place like Bozeman, Montana, where we have, big chunks of national forest right, essentially out the front door, it's that 5 mile radius range that gets the most use. So that's where mommies and daddies take their little kids because it's easy and accessible and they can get back to get that kid cleaned up or address any things that pop up. It's where I get out on that afternoon trail run when I'm sneaking out of work, or, fish a little bit just to say I've been fishing versus like the big thing that I want to do on the weekend, right? Work the dog. These are highly accessible lands. And when we remove that opportunity, this kind of goes back into our business letter as well, like we're removing people from these activities. Some people, that's all they can afford to do is that 5 mile radius.
Yep.
It's all either economically or time wise, that is their access. And if that goes away, we know through lots and lots of studies that some of these people just hang up the shotgun strap and never come back to it. That has a huge impact on outdoor businesses, but it also has a huge impact on the next 5 miles of access and the next 5 miles of access. So even if you're like, this stuff doesn't matter to me, we have word on the street is 2 more budget reconciliation bills coming in this administration. And if we allow Mike Lee to kick open the door to something that we literally already have a process for, this is government redundancy at its finest, but it's just the way he wants it done. If we allow that to happen, you can bet your pants the next reconciliation bill is going to have a bigger ask and a bigger ask and a bigger ask. So, I mean, we got to stop this now. I know I've been doing a lot of talking here. That's kind of where we're at. So we're waiting on the Senate parliamentarian to accept this language. It's starting to make the rounds. People can read it for themselves. And it's not different. Like the stated reason is affordable housing. There's no language that addresses how that works, which is bizarre to me because in any mountain town, you cannot throw a rock without hitting a contractor that could draw up some sort of a plan for affordable housing. The closest thing that we've seen are some zoning language, and zoning in these places isn't that specific. It allows for affordable housing, but it also allows for ranchettes that break up migration corridors and is largely not attainable to the economic group of people that Mike Lee's talking about here. Again, like he's just not connected, or he's really not trying to address the group that he's telling everybody he is. So affordable housing, those needs, those infrastructure needs for growing communities is already provided for through the legal framework that we have in place that I mentioned earlier, FLIPFA and FLIPMA. It doesn't need to be included in the budget reconciliation process. This is something that we've done several times in the past. For folks on the other side of the voting aisle, had Harris won, there was a plan to dispose of tracts of land to address affordable housing needs through FLIPFA and FLIPMA. Biden sold a chunk that actually he put it in process. It was approved. It actually got done after Trump took office, but that was a Biden era action. And so folks know, like, that sale that was to address the affordable housing crisis, 2 out of the 5 tracts of land never even got a bid. So we can unless there's a real scalpel approach for the direct need, even under the regular process, that needs work as per usual. We can improve all things, but that's a long-winded way of saying, like, there's no way to look at Lee's plan and say that we need this for anything. The needs are already addressed elsewhere. This is, at this point, one man's quest to get what he wants, and he's going to try to do it come hell or high water, despite the American people speaking up from every corner of every state at this point. So we've seen this amazing groundswell. That's basically where we're at right now, and it's literally up to every individual, every business to make those phone calls happen. I just got a note from our director of comms at Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. We had a goal today of 100,000 people contacting their senators through the BHA Action Center, and we're at 50,000.
Awesome.
So, yep, for a small organization.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and I know you already said it, but we already have programs in place to accommodate what I'd say is at least the framed, veiled, disguised reasoning by Utah Senator Mike Lee's proposal. It has checks and balances built into it that, at least to a high degree, everybody wins, right? So and
at least we have a say.
And at least we have a say, and it's visible, and it's not being, railroaded through, trying to get, slid under the radar, which it certainly has hit the radar. And like you said, people from all 50 states have gotten engaged here, and not even all 50 states, to my knowledge, are, I guess their public lands, at least right now, aren't even on the chopping block. Exactly.
And the reason that Western forests got thrown in and not Eastern forests, and you're going to have to trust me when I say that Eastern forests were part of the idea. So you folks over there in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, West Virginia, you were part of this plan too, is those states are just older than we are. And so those forests were established under a different system, and it got a little too wonky to fit them in for legal reasons here. So it was even too much of a stretch for old Mike Lee to include those eastern forests. But this proposal is the foundation that we can't let get built, right? This is how we dispose of all of it. And he was out front saying 250 million acres of low value land doesn't mean anything to anybody.
Yeah. And then you go out and you look at those places and you're like, no, this is probably, in my opinion, some of our highest value land.
Oh, I shot my first elk in Idaho doing customer service for First Light. And I could only hunt. I was the only dude answering the phone. I could only hunt basically within line of sight of town where I had cell service, so I could keep answering the phone. And I used to tell people this a bunch. You've probably heard this story because you and I go way back. But had I been, 50 vertical feet higher on the mountain, I could have seen the First Light office from where I killed my first bull. And those are the places that are included in the lands possibly for sale, right? And don't cry for me. I was the perpetually single dude who ran around and hunted everywhere and loved to hike on top of it. You got to cry for the people who have the small kids or the older generation, the younger generation that need easier access.
Yeah. I mean, I can think of, I love to hunt all over the place, multiple states. But there's a little piece of public right by my house. And I'd say by the numbers, if you said, where do you hunt the most? it could be that little piece of public right by my house. And it is the place where I've taken my daughters, and it is the place that I can go for a hike. And it is, if I've got a half hour this day or that day or an hour or two, I can zip down there and have actually a pretty darn high quality experience that is close to home. And it's one of those places like, yeah, it's basically on the edge of town, right? Like in some ways you'd say, boy, a piece like that would probably be the first to go. Is it that big? No. Does it have houses pretty darn close to it already? Yes. You know, why don't we just lump that in? I'm like, man, well, now you've made my recreating by the numbers a heck of a lot more difficult. And I don't know, it's interesting. And I know people need places to live, but like we said, we've got programs in place that address that issue, that have built-in checks and balances. And from what I've seen, the language in this proposal is incredibly vague. It's ambiguous. You could there's really no definition for a lot of the verbiage contained within it. It could mean really anything. I would say that's likely intentional if I was to speculate. It just seems like a very dangerous thing. And if any portion of it goes through, like you said, you know, he's kind of continually with this pressure dialed it back. You know, he says, I'm listening, I'll dial it back. It's like, no, you're not listening. None of this is for sale. If you had your ears on, you know, turn your ears on, Mike. None of this is for sale. It's going to set a very dangerous precedent. And it'll be if any of this goes through, it will be the first domino. And if it's not in your state now, it'll likely be your state next.
It is. And you're exactly right on the language and the takeaway for sure. You know, one of my favorite lines, if you could call it that, in the original language is like, this only pertains to lands that are near population centers. And then like 3 bullet points later, it was like, or lands that are far away. I'm like, so kind of anything in between. But
or far away.
Yeah, exactly. And folks need to know, like, a big reason that this has gone so far is we have this system of seniority within our houses of representation, right? Whether you're in the House or the Senate. And, you know, Lee is a senior member of the Senate at this point. He is the committee chair, and he can just make people's life hell who are trying to do anything good within that committee. It is very, very hard to get anything out of committee if the committee chair doesn't want it to happen. And so that's what he's been doing, is saying, Senator Daines, who's one of my senators here in Montana and is also a senior member of that committee, saying, like, I don't care what you want to get done this year. Right. And Daines is like, I'm coming up for midterm election. Like, this is when we get stuff done. And he's like, I don't care. He's like, don't fight me on public land sales or you won't get anything done. And that's like one of these political things that is just so maddening. And I do not understand why it's got to be this way.
Boy, that is maddening. Like you said, on a bright side, it's been quite some time, if ever, that I've seen the outdoor community rally and come together on anything, and I'm glad it's this issue because it's a big one. I've seen lots of activity within the hunting, fishing community. And that's my circle. You know, those are the folks that I run with. What are you seeing, you know, outdoor communities, you know, the hiker, the backpacker, other user groups rally behind this and get involved?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I just before this call, I was sitting on a call with REI and Patagonia and you know, they are very, very invested, and we're seeing surfers and you know, folks outside the hook and bullet community are definitely stepping up, and yeah, you want to talk to some passionate people, as you know, at Vortex, right? Birders, they don't need to travel far, right? That chunk close to their house that's got a good little shaded corridor, they can go get a lot of enjoyment out of watching birds right there, and they're a very vocal money spending community. OHV groups. It is absolutely a galvanizing event, and we just need to keep this thing going and truly make it to where this is going to set the precedent that you just do not mess with this stuff. Ryan Zinke, a representative here in Montana, he's got a Public Lands and Public Hands Act. That's the best looking chunk of legislation we have to proactively get ahead of shenanigans like this. Like the win, right, is everybody signs that thing and we get that thing passed. That would be like a great proactive thing to come out of this. But we just need to spank this idea so hard that, because the reality is like there's all sorts of stuff going on right now, right? We got Arctic National Wildlife Refuge development, Ambler Road, which is hopefully gone for the time being. Oak Flat, all these amazing places, Boundary Waters Canoe Area, that need the attention of all of these groups again. And, the biggest thing, the biggest critical loss is this public lands threat right now, where once it's gone, it is totally gone. A mine, 6, 7, 8 generations down the road, we might be able to reclaim that thing, but it's not gone. And so by focusing on this, there's other things that are absolutely slipping through the cracks. And it's amazing like how much pressure has mounted, how visible it is, how many people are flooding these offices today to try to get this language thrown out. And it's like those offices aren't getting anything else done today. They have to address this because people are demanding it. But there's a lot of work to be done, right? So,
yeah, is there anything that President Trump could do like right now that you're aware of that he could just squash it, like be like, you need to take this out. Like, I want the rest of this stuff to go through a little bit more smoother than it is right now. You need to remove this. I mean, does he have the ability to squash that or not?
he absolutely has leverage. All the reports that I have is he had tried to grease the wheels with Lee early, but there may be some alignment there on sales, as we know, like Donald Trump didn't make his reputation off of hunting and angling on public land, right? So his connection to this stuff isn't going to be the same as people within this community, right? So I believe there's some executive action that could happen on the books, but I think for certain that guy could say, "Little Michael, need to talk to you. I want my bill passed, and you are messing up."
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I mean, I truly view this as a non-partisan issue. So when I bring that up, it's not like, oh, this guy. It's like I'd be asking that question of whoever, the sitting president is, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So they have to sign the bill, right? Whoever that sitting president is, they have to sign this bill at completion. I think it'd be very, very rare for them to kick it back and say, "Hey, this needs more work." That's what the House and senators are supposed to be doing. The House, right? So once the Senate gets this thing done, because this language is new in the Senate, it wasn't in the House version. When it has to go back through the House. Their job is to look at the new language and rubber stamp it. And literally that process has basically been that, because there's so much pressure on the House at that point that people are like, you got to get this through. That's your job right now, not to be overly critical. But the House will have another shot at this. And Your nonprofits, BHA being one of them, like we're spending time talking with people at the House, people who have made good statements. Ryan Zinke here in Montana, Simpson in Idaho. On the Republican side, there's some absolutely phenomenal Democrats on this issue too. Gabe Vasquez out of New Mexico is a total ass kicker, and working, just trying to fortify those folks and say, you're awesome. We appreciate your position. If this thing comes back, you got to stand up for us. So, and I've made a lot of check-ins with Zinke's office myself and just said, come on, bud, we need you. Right. And they keep telling me that, they're like, Cal, Zinke's position on this. And he's been great on it. So, but we just can't let this thing go to the House. Like, we got to squash it in the Senate. And there's great Democrats, like Martin Heinrich, out of New Mexico as well, who is working hard across the aisle to make this stuff happen too. And there is certainly among the Western states, we've seen like Risch and Crapo in Idaho make some good statements. Like, the awareness that this belongs to one party or another is not, like, they know it's a nonpartisan issue in these states. It's communicating that out has been a struggle. But like I said, we're winning that battle. People understand this is not a right or left issue. And the stated issue as to why we're talking about this in the first place, we've been able to address in the past. We can address it now through the existing framework. So, and it's a framework that is going to be beneficial and actually felt by the American people under Lee's program. There's not a person on the planet, U.S. citizen or otherwise, that's going to feel a dollar pitched into the Treasury at this point. So.
No. I mean, in some ways, I look at this issue, and one thing that I find refreshing is that it is completely nonpartisan, and there are so many people taking action, getting involved, who probably, a lot of folks have never done that, right? Like, I'm not the type of person who's like super engaged about, a ton of issues. This is definitely one I'm extremely engaged with right now. And I would think, no matter the politician, I would think it would be an easy one for them to go, wow, the American public is speaking from both sides of the aisle, or any side of the aisle, wherever, if you're an American, you're speaking about this, you're not for it. Their job is to represent the American people and what they want, not what maybe one or a few select people want. Get that verbiage out of there. It doesn't belong there.
Yeah, and they got a lot of other fires to put out too.
Yeah.
Right? So it seems like an easy one to me. I do think, again, that system that we have in place, these folks are probably going, if we're going to get anything done in Mike Lee's committee, it's going to have to be without him, which means all those other committee members have to be in complete lockstep, which was another bipartisan action, nonpartisan action. And, we need more of that.
Well, let me ask this, because you said something earlier, you were talking about how it was essentially initially thrown out, right? Because of the nature of what it was, and essentially not being applicable, I guess, to the overall goal. At least that's how I inferred what you were saying. The new way this is being pitched, it's the same but different. So shouldn't it see the same fate, or is it at a different point in the process?
It should see the same fate. Lee made a couple of extra concessions in here to try to provide some funding. So the revenues, there's a little bit of revenue that would kick back for some development in those areas that would like come down to the county too, in an attempt to address that budgetary language. But it's like compared to what already exists in FLIPFA and FLIPMA, it's nothing. Like all that money would be coming back in FLIPFA and FLIPMA, not just for land acquisition, but for money spent on the ground, in that development process. You know, like there's some famous cases out there of, you know, water treatment facilities that take a big chunk of ground, that's not like a multi-use situation, that communities have petitioned for a land sale of BLM ground next to their community because it's such a big footprint and it has a like a civil service type of application for that community, right? And federal funds through those sales typically go back to getting that project on the ground, as well as acquiring that land of greater strategic value that I told you about. So, I mean, again, this is a want, not a need, and it's a want that is coming from a guy who's increasingly standing alone.
Well, that's a good thing. My big question right now, and I know a lot of people have taken action, but what can people do? What can they continue to do? If this is the first time that they're hearing about this, you know, I mean, that's a good thing as well. As the more people who are aware of this, the better. But for a person that says, man, I want to get in the fight, what would you recommend they do?
Yeah, and it's like kind of like a 1, 2, 3 process, right? Like make that phone call to your senator, and I say, you know, be polite. That is a person on the other end of the line. The phone calls I made prior to talking to you today, like they're tired, and you can hear it. And so be polite. Let them know that you're a person too, and it's not a transaction; it's a conversation. They're going to move that thing into the appropriate pile, your ask, but they're going to do it as an advocate for you if you're willing to just let them know that you're a person and you recognize that they're a person. So be memorable, right? So make that ask. Not 1 acre in the budget reconciliation process, not 1 acre in the big beautiful bill. Remove the language. I would also call Senator John Thune's office in South Dakota. Again, he's not your senator, but he is the Senate Majority Leader. So his responsibility is bigger than just South Dakota right now. Those form letters that all of our hook and bullet organizations are sending out, man, sign them. I'd love it if you used Backcountry Hunters and Anglers Action Center. That does a couple of things. One, you're adding fuel to the fire through running your message through that center. And then our government relations people who their literal job and what you get for your membership, regardless of what organization, their job is to be in that room and represent you. And they have the relationships, and they're the people that get you in the door when you're a member of an organization and you say, hey, I'm going to DC. I would love to meet with my senator. They'll be like, great, that's awesome. This is what we've been talking about lately. I'll set up the appointment. And it's literally that easy. There's just very few people take them up on this stuff. So use those call centers, action alerts. Again, I'd be thrilled if you use Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. And this is uncomfortable for a lot of people, but if you want to use social media, and again, be polite and just say, hey, I love public lands and they're not for sale in the budget, and tag your elected officials, that gets through too. Like, amazingly enough, I don't care what type of following you have. It's a show of support. It's a show of unity. Political. This is, man, this is just your duty as a citizen. Like we talked about earlier, if you're waiting for election day, you're going to let a lot of stuff pass you up.
Yep. I'll add to that, Cal. It's never been easier to contact your representatives, your senators, like you said, orgs like Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, the TRCP. You go to the website. I mean, you enter, I think on the BHA one, I entered my address and my zip code. Boom, my senators popped up. All their contact information is there. I can email them with the click of a button. I can call them. It's as easy as it gets. I mean, you might not even know who your senator is. But
and that's okay. Start now.
You will if you click that button. I know on BHA's website, I saw you guys have an interactive map. So like, if you're like, oh gosh, I entered my zip code, but I don't know, if I want to contact, Mike Lee in Utah or South Dakota or, Senator in South Dakota, like, click that button and that person's contact information will pop up. And it really is as easy as the press of a button. Like you said, there's those form letters there. You can sign on with that. You can create your own message if you feel like doing that. But it truly has never been easier. It takes seconds. But it will have a collective impact.
And be welcoming. Like, I'm very invigorated. I'm tired as hell, but I'm full of energy. Because I love public lands and I know the time is now, but I'm getting tired of the folks who just can't get out of their own way. They may love public lands too, but they want to bash you for being a Republican or bash you for being a Democrat. Gang, I do not care. Like, if you're for public lands, I need you in this fight. If you're archery only or rifle only or motorcycle only, you're welcome. Like, come on in. Join this thing. Let's kick the crap out of this together. And let's understand that some things are way, way bigger than party politics. And once this stuff is gone, it is gone. It's a way, way different conversation once we allow the floodgates to open.
You nailed it. Once it's gone, it's gone. It's a slippery slope. And there can be, infighting amongst, user groups about this issue, or I like to use it this way. I tell you what, if it's not there, we won't have anything to argue about.
Exactly.
And also I'd say this is a good reminder that we have bigger fish to fry and we probably shouldn't be arguing so much. Man, I tell you what, Cal, our public lands, and I've said it before, but they are a uniquely American thing that make America great. We got this right. This is certainly something that we did unequivocally right. We don't need to mess with it. It doesn't need to be adjusted, revised, demolished. And it's so good to see folks like you in the fight and so many Americans in the fight who care about our public lands. And we just got to keep it going.
Oh, man. Yeah. No matter how sloppy and dirty and imperfect our public lands are, we got them. And literally every other country outside of Canada is wishing they had them too.
Once
they're gone, they're not back. You want to talk about land management? I'm happy to do so. We just need the land in order to have that conversation. So,
no, we are the envy of other countries, and let's keep it that way.
Darn right, buddy. Darn right. Well, if we all band together, we can make it happen. I'm super confident in that. So,
well, awesome. Well, Cal, thanks so much for the time. Thanks so much for being in the fight on this and keeping folks informed. We appreciate the update from you here today. And man, until next time, all I'll say is get in the fight. The time is now.
Yeah, folks, I got to tell you, I started talking about this stuff because my public lands were threatened a long time ago. The wilderness areas I love. And I thought, well, if I just wade in real hard, I can go back in the woods and not talk to people again. And I'm still doing it. And I'm still looking forward to the day that I get to go back in the woods and not talk to people. So help me out.
There you have it. All right. Thanks everybody for listening. This is an important one. Take action now. Until next time, we'll catch you on the next one, and we'll hopefully see you out there on our public lands. Bye, everybody.
There you have it, folks. Thank you very much for listening. As usual, give this video a like if you liked it, comment something below, and give us a subscribe to the Vortex Nation podcast channel. It would mean a lot to us. Also, why don't you give us a follow over on Instagram while you're at it, at Vortex Nation Podcast. We'd love to hear from you over there, and we'll keep you updated with all kinds of cool photos and videos from our adventures that we do here. Otherwise, we will see you on the next one. Thank you again. Happy hunting and shooting, everybody. Have a good one.